Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're looking at a bird that honestly seems to invite strong opinions. The cormorant.
It really does. It's fascinating. You have, on one hand, historical depictions, like John Milton calling them birds from hell, symbols of bad
Right,
things.
total ecosystem destroyers in some people's eyes.
Exactly. But then the science often tells us their presence, especially a thriving colony, can actually indicate a healthy, functioning aquatic environment. Quite the contradiction.
It's a real puzzle.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's our mission today. Let's dive into the sources. Why do these kind of strange, sleek, dark birds have such a terrible reputation? I mean, it's lasted centuries.
And what allows them to be so successful? They thrive almost everywhere, often despite, frankly, pretty aggressive efforts by people to get rid of them.
We're digging into that mix of like old myths, modern conflicts over fish, and just sheer biological success.
Yeah, the real challenge is pulling apart the cultural baggage from the ecological facts. What's myth, what's perception, and what's actually happening out there.
Let's start with that image, because it is powerful. If you see one, it's usually perched somewhere, wings spread out wide, totally still, very angular.
It's definitely an arresting pose,
Yeah.
almost statue-like. And then you add those eyes. They're small, kind of intense, tracking things underwater. It gives them this focused, almost calculating look.
And the thing that really seemed to bother early observers was this idea of greed. You read accounts of them just swallowing enormous amounts of fish that look way too big for their skinny necks.
That perception of gluttony, combined with swimming like a fish but being a bird, well, back in medieval times, that just seemed wrong, unnatural even, like it didn't fit the proper categories.
Just some kind of weird hybrid creature.
Pretty much. And the name itself didn't help.
Cormorant. Yeah, where does that come from?
It's basically squished down from Latin, corvus marinus, raven of the sea. And ravens, historically carried all sorts of baggage, bad luck, uncleanness, death omens. So the cormorant got linked to that vibe right from the start.
Okay, so that's the historical baggage. But people still dislike them intensely now? What are the modern complaints?
Oh, they're very practical now. Fishermen, especially commercial ones, see them as serious competition, particularly when you get these nesting colonies with literally tens of thousands of birds.
Tens of thousands, wow.
Yeah, huge numbers. And they absolutely can cause real economic damage to fish farms, aquaculture setups. That's documented.
And if you've ever been near a big colony, it's an experience. The sources mention, well, a sensory overload.
That's a good way to put it. They are incredibly loud. It's not singing. It's this constant grunting, croaking sound, a real cacophony.
And the smell.
Yeah, kind of stinky is putting it mildly. Part of that is, well, they throw up as a defense mechanism if you get too close.
Plug them.
And they also cough up these pellets like owls do with indigestible bits, fish bones, shells, that kind of thing. It all adds up.
Okay, so successful, yes. A bit messy, also yes. Which brings us back to that key question you raised earlier. Is the hate really about provable ecological harm? Or is it more about, not wanting to share the fish with such an efficient predator?
Before we get to the verdict on that, we really need to appreciate how they became so successful. Their biology is pretty amazing.
Let's talk about that. What exactly are cormorants, family-wise?
Okay, so they're a family, Phyllocracoracidae, with over 40 species globally, all fish eaters. Sometimes you hear them called shags.
Shags, why the different name?
Often, shag just refers to species that have crests, like little punk hairdos, or look a bit, well, shaggier. It's not a strict scientific division, more of a common name thing.
And they're everywhere, right?
Pretty much any coastline or major waterway. You've got the double-crested cormorant, which is king in North America. Breeds on the Great Lakes. You see them from Alaska down to the Caribbean. Huge range.
Then there are others.
Oh, yeah. Neotropical cormorants cover Mexico down to the tip of South America. The great cormorant has the widest range of all. Think of Greenland, Europe, Africa, Asia, even Australia and New Zealand.
Even Antarctica has them.
Well, Antarctic shags.
Yeah.
They look quite penguin-y, actually, black backs, white bellies. It's thought that might be camouflage, maybe against predators looking up from below, like leopard seals.
Okay, global dominance. But the real secret weapon is their diving, isn't it?
Absolutely. They are arguably the best freedivers in the entire bird kingdom. Phenomenal underwater hunters.
How do they do it? They spot fish from up high or just floating?
Both. They'll dive from a perch or just cruise on the surface, head submerged, looking down. Once they spot something, they use those big webbed feet, like powerful scuba fins. Serious propulsion.
And they grab the fish with that hooked beak.
Exactly. And they can stay down for a surprisingly long time. Over a minute isn't unusual, and they get deep. Up to 40 meters, that's over 130 feet down.
130 feet. How? Most water birds are trying to stay buoyant. Ducks, geese.
And they pop right back up. Ah, and that is the key. Here's the massive evolutionary trade-off they made. Their feathers. They're not really waterproof, not like a duck's.
Wait, not waterproof, but they're water birds.
I know it sounds counterintuitive, but unlike most waterfowls that have dense, oily feathers to repel water and stay warm and buoyant, cormorants sacrifice that.
Why on earth would they do that?
Because they want to get wet. Think about it. If your feathers get soaked, you become heavier, less buoyant.
Oh, so it makes it easier to sink.
Exactly. They don't have to fight so hard to get down deep where the fish are. They basically let the water soak in, reducing their buoyancy, and it lets them dive deeper and stay down longer, using less energy.
Hmm.
It's brilliant, but it comes at a cost.
The cost being they get waterlogged and cold.
Precisely. And that dictates that famous, often misinterpreted behavior. After a dive, they have to get out of the water, find a high spot like a post or a branch,
And spread their wings.
and spread their wings out to dry in the sun and wind. It's not some sinister ritual. It's just essential maintenance. Because their insulation is compromised. They need to dry off to be able to fly effectively again.
So the very thing that makes them look ominous is just a consequence of this amazing diving adaptation.
A perfect example of how an adaptation can be misunderstood by observers.
Okay, adaptation understood. Now, let's tackle that ecological impact directly. Where does the science land? Let's start with the trees, because you said that damage is pretty clear-cut.
It is, unfortunately. For tree-nesting cormorants, the impact on forest canopies, especially in large colonies, is undeniable and can be severe. It happens in two main ways.
Okay, what's the first?
There are droppings, guano. It's highly concentrated, very acidic, and it just rains down constantly from the nests onto the leaves below. This coats the leaves.
Blocking sunlight.
Exactly. It dramatically reduces the tree's ability to photosynthesize, to make energy.
And the second way?
That same acidic guano lands on the ground around the base of the tree. It changes the soil chemistry, making it harder for the roots to absorb nutrients. So the tree is getting hit from above and below. It's weakened significantly.
That sounds pretty devastating for the tree.
It often is. And add to that, cormorants build big, heavy nests. They keep adding material year after year. As the tree gets weaker from the guano stress, the sheer weight of these nests puts too much strain on the branches.
So the branches break.
Branches break, limbs fall, eventually the tree can die, and the nesting habitat is lost. It's a clear, observable negative impact in concentrated nesting areas.
Okay, tree damage, confirmed. Which, combined with the perception of fish eating, makes those government-sanctioned culls, like the 100,000 allowed kills in the U.S. annually, seem, well, understandable, if maybe harsh.
Understandable from a certain perspective, yes.
Right.
But this brings us right back to the fish controversy. Because while the tree impact is visible and proven, the idea that they devastate overall fish populations, that's where the science gets really interesting and often contradicts the common narrative.
How so? We have sources talking about huge colonies, like the one on Lake Ontario you mentioned, 80,000 birds.
At its peak, yeah, a massive colony. But detailed studies in that same area, looking specifically at the populations of valuable sport fish,
They found
basically no negative impact attributable to the cormorants.
no impact. With 80,000 birds eating fish every day, how is that possible?
Well, it turns out cormorants are often quite opportunistic. They go for what's abundant and easy to catch. And in places like the Great Lakes, what's often most abundant.
Not the trout and salmon everyone prizes.
Nope. Invasive species, particularly alewife, these huge schools of small, silvery fish that aren't native. The studies show the cormorants were primarily chowing down on alewife.
So they might actually be helping control an invasive species.
In some contexts, yes. That seems to be the case in several studies. The reality is often way more complex than just cormorants eat all the good fish.
But hang on, if the science shows they're eating invasives, why are fishermen often still so convinced they're the problem? Why the continued pressure for culls?
It's complicated. Part of it is visibility, I think. Cormorants are very visible. You see thousands of them diving, surfacing with fish. It looks like they must be depleting everything.
Perception versus reality.
Exactly. And fishermen are focused on specific target species, the valuable sport or commercial fish. The cormorants might be eating mostly alewife, but the fishermen see them in the same waters where they want to catch trout or bass. It's easy to connect the dots, even if the main impact isn't there. Blaming the bird is simpler than tackling complex issues like invasive species or habitat changes.
So we have this bird performing a potential service, eating invasive fish, but it's so good at what it does and so visible that it becomes a target. And this whole conflict is amplified because they made such a huge comeback, right?
That recovery story is truly remarkable. It shows their resilience. Back in the mid-20th century, double-crested cormorant numbers just plummeted. They were heading towards real trouble.
And the culprit was DDT, that pesticide?
Yes, DDT. It wasn't killing the adult birds directly in most cases.
Yeah.
It was messing with their reproduction in a devastating way.
How did it do that? We know DDT builds up in the food chain.
Right. It accumulates in the fatty tissues of fish. Cormorants eat lots of fish, so they get high doses. The DDT interferes with calcium metabolism.
Calcium.
So eggshells.
Exactly. The female birds couldn't form strong eggshells. The shells they laid were incredibly thin, fragile.
So they just broke.
They broke just from the weight of the parent incubating them, or even just slight movements in the nest. Reproduction basically failed across huge areas. It was catastrophic for the population.
Until DDT was banned.
Until it was banned, yeah.
Yep.
Then, slowly, as DDT levels dropped in the environment, the birds started laying viable eggs again. And because they're such successful breeders and survivors, their numbers began to rebound dramatically. By the 90s, they were back in force, and suddenly the old conflicts flared up again.
Which leads us to management. How do we deal with these massive recovered colonies? You mentioned Toronto as an example. Yeah, Tommy Thompson Park on the Toronto waterfront. It ended up hosting the largest breeding colony of double-crested cormorants in North America. But by 2007, it was clear there was a problem. They had damaged almost a quarter of the park's forest canopy with their nesting.
So what did the park authorities do? Just start culling?
No, and this is what's really cool. They took a more science-based, humane approach. They focused on managing the birds' behavior, not just eliminating them.
How do you manage bird behavior?
Two main things. First, they actively encourage the cormorant's natural tendency to sometimes nest on the ground. Ground nests don't kill trees. Second, they discourage them from nesting in the healthy parts of the forest canopy that other species needed.
Okay, but wouldn't ground nests be more dangerous for them? Predators?
Good point. Ground nests are vulnerable to things like coyotes, raccoons. So the park came up with an engineered solution. They built these artificial elevated nesting structures, platforms, basically.
Which staff nicknamed?
Cormorants, which is pretty great.
Cormorants. I love it. So
Yeah.
just raised platforms.
Raised platforms? Yeah, but designed with incredible attention to cormorant behavior. This is the really neat detail.
Go on.
They figured out the optimal spacing between the spots where birds could build nests on these platforms. The distance was precisely 41 centimeters.
41 centimeters. Why that specific number?
It's the approximate length of 2 necks.
2 cormorant necks. What does that achieve?
It means that a cormorant sitting on its nest can stretch out its neck, and its neighbor can stretch out its neck, and their beaks can just about touch. But they don't cross into each other's immediate personal space.
Minimizing squabbles.
Exactly. It provides enough density for a colony, which they like, but just enough separation to reduce conflict between neighbors. It's thoughtful wildlife management through engineering based on understanding the animal.
That's fantastic. Managing coexistence instead of just conflict. Okay, so let's pull this all together. We've got a bird blamed for centuries, partly based on myth and its slightly unsettling appearance.
Right, and partly on its genuine, sometimes messy success.
With this incredible diving adaptation, sacrificing waterproof feathers for depth that allowed it to bounce back from near disaster caused by DDT.
Only to run into conflict again because of its impact on trees, which is real, and its perceived, though often exaggerated, impact on fisheries.
And ironically, while doing damage to trees, it might actually be helping manage invasive fish in some areas.
The plot twists keep coming with this bird. And the ultimate irony might be how we view them now versus how humans use them historically.
You mean cormorant fishing?
Exactly.
Right.
We spend so much effort trying to control or reduce them today because they're such good fishers. But for centuries, humans actively use that skill.
Right. You see those images from China or Japan, fishermen with cormorants on leashes.
Still happens today, often more as a tourist thing, but it was a serious fishing technique across Asia and also historically in places like Lake Titicaca in South America, even parts of the Mediterranean.
How did that work? Didn't the birds just eat the fish?
The method was pretty harsh, actually. They'd put a snare or a ring around the bird's neck, tight enough to stop it from swallowing large fish. The bird would dive, catch a fish, bring it back to the boat, and the fisherman would make it cough up the fish.
Wow. Effective, but rough on the bird.
Definitely. But the point is, humans recognized and valued their fishing efficiency for a long, long time. They saw them as partners, albeit forced ones, in harvesting fish.
So despite all the modern effort to control them, sometimes kill them by the thousands, we have this long history of acknowledging, even exploiting, how incredibly good they are at catching fish. It makes you wonder, doesn't it?
It really does.
Is the conflict today really just about ecological balance? Or is there something deeper, maybe about our own discomfort with sharing resources, especially with an animal that's just too successful, too efficient for our liking?
That's the lingering question, isn't it? A challenge to how we think about wildlife, competition, and coexistence.
Definitely something to chew on. Thanks for diving deep with us today.
My pleasure.
We'll catch you on the next deep dive.